This is Ling, the co-founder of Grab Taxi, and your story is one that a lot of people here know very well, and some people know less well. But as Southeast Asia's largest, a co-founder of Southeast Asia's largest tech startup, one of the most valuable as well. I think there's a lot of interest in knowing how you got here and where you're going from there. So again, we started this conversation a few months back when you came through San Francisco. So I'm really glad to be able to continue it here with you today. Very momentous year for Grab, 2018 so far. We saw the acquisition of Uber, followed in very close succession by a fundraising round of $1 billion. And just when you thought that was enough, there was another fundraising round of $1 billion. Are we done yet?
So to be clear, that round was the same round. It just got upsized because we were getting so much interest from different investors, strategic and financial. So to date, we've actually raised $2 billion in our Series H. We have commitments for $2.5 billion. And we're actually on track to raising $3 billion by the end of the year. So really, it's grown from sort of $1 billion to $3 billion. Yeah, because I think once we actually shared that there was some interest, all of a sudden it just came pouring in. So we also said, who are the right partners? Should we be looking at it in a different way? And right now, this is the latest. All right, so $3 billion, that's a lot of money. I'm no math genius, but what do you need that much money for? Great question. There are 9 zeros, by the way. I constantly keep track of it. It's really important because if you think about the potential in Southeast Asia, there's a lot of growth opportunities. There's more greenfield than anything else in any other region in the world because technology has not been able to truly shape the lives of Southeast Asia as a region yet, as it already has done in like China, the States, and other developed markets. So what we're using that money for is no longer just for ride-hailing, right? We've become the market-leading ride-hailing platform in Southeast Asia. What we're doing is we're using it now in growth areas. Last month, we launched, actually 2 months ago, we launched Grab Platform, where we talked about becoming Southeast Asia's everyday app. Doing food deliveries, payments, financial services. We also recently launched a partnership with Ping An Good Doctor on healthcare. These everyday O2O services are what we're now going into. That's one big area. Yeah. The second area, because there's a lot of money, right? The second big area is to increase our operational presence in Indonesia. It's a market that we've seen tremendous growth in recently since we started focusing on it. Just this year alone, our revenue there has increased by 3 times. We've also become the leading ride-hailing platform there, and our market share is about 65%. And if you look at our newer growth areas like Grab Food Deliveries, it's grown from a dozen cities before. We're now in 30 cities in Indonesia alone. By the end of this year, expect us to be in more than 130 cities.
I want to home in on Indonesia, a very important market, also one where you have a very formidable competitor in Gojek. Tell us about how you double down on Indonesia as a market, engage in that battle with Gojek without falling into the trap of the cash burn that we've seen trip up other ride-hailing companies in other parts of the world.
This is why I was profusely nodding my head just now based on the comments that were shared in the previous panel. It goes down to unit economics. It goes down to making sure that you build the right technology and product infrastructure to build better segmentation, personalization, so that when you're making investments, you're making it in the smartest way possible. It is all about localized know-how and building and bridging that with the best global R&D talent. Talent like Southeast Asia has never seen before. So to share with you, because we're not China, we're not States, we didn't have a lot of people that we could naturally hire from. we had to grow that organically. We're now the largest organically grown tech R&D company. We've, this year alone, doubled our technologist headcount, so the number of folks that we have on board. By the end of this year, will be close to 2,000 software engineers, product managers, designers, data scientists, and the like.
From what, so that number has doubled in 2018,
Exactly.
is what you're saying. Where, we talk to a lot of startups in this part of the world, and it's the same elsewhere. Finding the right talent, finding enough engineers. How do you overcome that challenge? And is there a role that government should play, specifically Singapore's government, should play in helping foster an ecosystem that provides startups like yours with the R&D talent to meet this, doubling from 1,000 to 2,000? I mean, that's onboarding multiple people every day.
Exactly. And this, I have to give kudos to the Singaporean government, and many governments in Southeast Asia have been looking into this. We've been the beneficiaries of grants from EDB, and we've been the beneficiaries of great conversations on trying to think about how we can foster this talent more. So recently, we partnered up with NUS, the National University of Singapore, to launch an AI lab between Grab and NUS. We do this not just in Singapore, in other countries as well, globally as well, in the States, China, and whatnot. But net, it's a lot of hard work. We fortunately, over the last 6 years, we've built a reputation of having really real problems, like problems that change millions of lives, shapes the future of Southeast Asia for decades to come. And the engineers and our operators and our Grabbers, we all know that is what Grab is here for, and that's what they all want to join us to shape as well.
You have an R&D center in Seattle, correct? And that's, I think, a source of talent for you. Many companies, certainly the ones we cover in the U.S. and certainly cover companies outside the U.S., talk to us about the challenge that's presented by U.S. immigration policies, H-1B visas and the limits that are placed on those. Can you talk a little bit about what kind of H-1B visa immigration environment would be beneficial for unicorns like yours?
I think there are many experts who are speaking on this topic right now. For us, I guess that's why we invested into a global R&D strategy, right? Irrespective of what the specific localized condition is in a country, for example, the States right now, we still are able to grow talent in a portfolio-like approach. What do I mean by this, right? At Grab right now, we have 6 R&D centers globally, and all of them are sizable. That's how we get up to 2,000 folks, right? One in the States, Seattle, one in Beijing, China, Bangalore, India, and of course Singapore, our largest right now. And we've also we started reinvesting into local talent in Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh City, and Jakarta, Indonesia as well. If you think about what we're doing, right, we're trying to bring the best global talent from the States, China, India, trying to grow that organically as well. We're importing a lot of folks from the States or Europe to Singapore, to Indonesia. And it's because of that portfolio strategy, when there are visa fluctuations in any country, we can continue to grow in a portfolio manner.
Do you have pointers for some of the startups who may be represented here or listening to us through Bloomberg or other means? By the way, please don't hesitate to tweet from the conference. Just a reminder, the hashtag is hashtag STYT. But getting back to the question, startups that are not as far along as you, don't have the capital resources. What are some of the lessons that you learned early on about inviting people, getting people to join your cause before you were big, before you were well known, before you reached that unicorn status, before you were raising $3 billion in a year's time?
So many. Where do I start? I think we're very fortunate that my co-founder Anthony and I, we started with a problem that was true to the hearts of many Southeast Asians. We started because we wanted to solve a safety problem in the taxi industry in Malaysia, which was unfortunately globally known to be the worst taxi services in Kuala Lumpur. And because it was such a big problem, and because we clearly thought through what we thought was a good solution to it, everybody wanted to pitch in and say, hey, if we can do it, we should do it, and let's go on this crazy dream together. That's where it all started. For us, we never imagined we'd be a unicorn, had no idea what it was, to be honest. Folks ask us, did we know who Uber was back then? No, right? We were very, very focused on the customer problem. Mm-hmm. And that's what I would recommend, right? Go to real problems. Go to problems that, other people believe in as well, and you need to believe in it. I unfortunately have heard too many founding stories where folks are just trying to look for a business, look for an untapped market opportunity to launch. If you don't have passion for it, no matter how great the numbers are, it's going to show in the day-to-day grind, because it's not fun, right? It's really, really not fun. We get the pleasure of getting to sit here with you, Tom, and speak to so many folks after, millions of hours of hard work, pain, tears, and not many folks make it along the way. So if you do not truly believe in the problem that you're solving, don't bother starting. Others can see it. Your team members can see it.
We've talked today about a lot of challenges that the global economy is facing, rising interest rates in the U.S., a trade war between the U.S. and China. A lot of fundraising happening this year for you. Is part of your motivation a concern or a question about whether the funding window is going to close? Do you have concerns about that? Do you, looking ahead, the day of reckoning that a polling question was flashed up earlier?
We are constantly keeping an eye on macroeconomic trends. We have very little influence in that, so we know that we need to be aware and agile. Ultimately, what matters in being agile is to have a couple of things. One, fundamentals. The unit economics that were being talked about just now, super critical to us. Why we need to raise money is not because our fundamentals or unit economics aren't there. It's because we say, hey, there's a huge opportunity right now. We can decide to invest, go big now, just so that we can reap the market that's ripe, vis-a-vis growing organically but slower. We have those choices and options. And thanks to the external interest that we have, the partnership interests that we have, we get that choice and we make that decision each 6 months, each quarter, each year, right? The second thing to be agile as well is to make sure that you have the right team, the right leadership bench. And again, this was another comment I was very violently nodding my head towards just now, which is, my co-founder Anthony and I, we know that we want to set up Grab to be what we call a multi-generational company, right? It needs to be healthily set up, hopefully crafted around the visions, the missions, the things that we care about. But we're bringing in amazing leaders right now, some of the best from the world, locally, regionally, to help take that vision forward. Because, we will be here for as long as we can, and the team wants us as well. But ultimately, we're here to make sure that we can shape this for multiple generations to come.
I want to talk a little bit about customer service, putting the customer first. You talked about that being a passion for you. In light of the Uber deal, one of the concerns that people raised before is what happens to customer service. You take out a competitor, your incentive to please the customer and put the customer first diminishes. There definitely seems to be some buzz on social media, anecdotally. The government has kind of raised some questions about whether customer service has fallen, has deteriorated in light of the deal. What kinds of, is it dropping off? And what can you say to reassure people who are thinking, I'm not so excited about using Grab as I was once before?
I'd say try us and let us win your trust back, right? Firstly, let me contextualize what happened with the acquisition. It was, if you think about it, two huge companies, products, teams coming together in a very short amount of time. hindsight 2020, to be honest, we did make mistakes. We know that. We've never done anything like this before. And we realized that there were things around communications, there were things around how we were onboarding our drivers, our passengers at scale, that we would have loved to have done differently if we could reverse time, right? Net though, even as we were learning things live, we were making these changes on the go. And because both our products were actually slightly different, despite what everybody thinks, we have and will be continuing to make investments to learn from the team members that we've also brought on board from Uber. Stepping back, to us, it's actually less about the consolidation, more about our continued mission to outserve our customers. It all goes back to first principles. If you don't outserve your customers, your unit economics will never be well, it will never be self-sustaining, and you won't be an ongoing multi-generational company. It's all interlinked, but it starts with the customer, because if they don't want you, what's the point of developing technology for the sake of technology?
Great. We're talking about the city of the future. You're a transportation company. You're going in a lot of different directions. One of the things you've announced recently was the way that you can help municipal governments, you can help local transportation make a public transportation system more efficient. How do you sort of tell us a little bit about how and why a private company like yours wants to play a role in making municipal travel, operate more efficiently?
For us, it's simple. It's because that's what we have always wanted to do. And you've probably seen it in the actions that we've taken, the partnerships that we've taken over multiple years now. Locally here in Singapore, we have a partnership with multiple entities, some more recent ones like GovTech, where we helped co-launch a product called Grab Shuttle. Right? It's something in between a bus and a car, where you could probably put 721 people in it. And the objective is to see how that can supplement our services as well as buses and MRT networks, right? We do this not just in Singapore. We also do this in Indonesia, where we work with entities like KAI, Damri. They're the local bus and train network operators, which we're always constantly trying to work with to say, hey, you guys provide the trunk routes super efficiently. Awesome. How can we help you provide the first and last mile, either via bikes or cars, between those stations and where our customers ultimately want to get to, which is homes or offices or supermarkets, right? That's at localized country city levels. We also partner with global entities like UNDP, World Bank, on many different initiatives, because we know that we are solving not just a problem today with the data that we have, with the infrastructure that we have, but also using this to better plan cities in the future. What's the next version of a city if you could start from scratch? There are many, many different entities that are looking into this right now.
Last thing, in the last few seconds, healthcare. It's a hard area for a startup to break into, but you found a way through this partnership you mentioned with Ping. Tell us a little bit about how that works and why you've decided that this is an area that makes sense for you.
So I think this is a very unique approach that others have found new. To us at Grab, we know we can do everything ourselves if we wanted to, but there is a limit to the scale and speed that we could actually impact lives, the 600 million lives in Southeast Asia. So for us, it was a simple question. Why do we need to do it all ourselves? Because ultimately, it's not about doing it per se, but it's about the customer impact that we can have. So why don't we create a platform leveraging the assets, the distribution networks, the customers that we already have, to bring the best global operational and technology know-how to work with us. So we've done this with two big partners recently since Grab platform has launched. One is Ping An Gokta for healthcare, and if you guys know, they're larger in valuation than we are, substantially, and we look forward to working a lot with them. They'll bring the technology, they'll bring the know-how, we'll bring the local knowledge and the operations in the team, right? We've also done this with local startups like Happy Fresh to launch Grab Fresh, which is deliveries of groceries. And all of these are just some of the many partnerships that we've had and will continue to invest in going forward.